She cancelled our wedding, because it clashed with his birthday. Those were the exact words her sister whispered to me, her voice trembling as she handed me back the invitation card I'd printed with shaking hands. I stood there in my wedding tuxedo, under the same sky where I once imagined our future. The venue was fully booked, guests were on their way, and the flowers she'd picked just arrived. But the bride? The bride decided that his birthday party meant more than our vows. Her name was Ariba, flawless on the outside, full of soft words, shy smiles, and promises she swore were only mine. We'd been engaged for 10 months. I sold my car to help her father out of a financial mess. I stayed up all night when her mom was hospitalized. I wrote her poetry when she cried about loneliness. But she had someone else waiting in the shadows. His name was Denial. Her best friend. The one she told me not to worry about. The one who laughed too hard at her jokes, texted her late at night, and had an Instagram highlight titled, "Her Red Heart." I should have seen it coming. But when she said she wanted to postpone the wedding, I begged her for an explanation. She said she was emotionally overwhelmed, needed space. I respected her. I gave her that. But when her sister told me the truth, that she had skipped our wedding date to throw Denial a private birthday dinner at a rooftop restaurant, I felt the kind of silence that screams louder than thunder. My world shattered. And here's the twist, she didn't expect me to walk away. She didn't expect me to move on. She definitely didn't expect me to marry someone else. But I did. And when I did, she cried like I'd betrayed her. I met Ariba during the lowest point of my life. My brother had just passed away in a road accident. I was drowning in guilt and grief, barely functioning. She worked at the hospital cafeteria where I spent most nights, unable to face the silence of home. She started by offering me tea. Then came a seat. Then came stories. And before I knew it, she became my light. She made me laugh again. She made me believe again. She made me feel like someone worthy of love, not someone broken. Ariba was warm, patient, and soft-spoken. She had a habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when nervous and tapping her pen when excited. I remember thinking, if I could wake up to her every morning, life might not be so bad. I fell hard. And I wasn't afraid to show it. I introduced her to my family. I planned long walks and short trips. I'd leave work early just to surprise her with flowers. When she told me her dad was deep in debt and loan sharks had started circling their house, I didn't even flinch. I sold my car without telling her and paid it off quietly. All I wanted was her happiness. We got engaged in front of both families 6 months later. She wore a sky blue dress that day, and when she said yes, my mother whispered, "She's going to bring peace into your life." I believed that. But slowly, things started to change. Ariba began canceling plans. She got distant during conversations. She said she was tired from work. But I noticed how quickly she replied to Denial's texts even while ignoring mine. I once asked her if anything was going on between them. She laughed. "He's like a brother." I smiled back. But something inside me curled. Denial was always around. At our engagement party, he brought a bigger gift than anyone else, and she hugged him a second longer than me. When I posted our pre-wedding shoot online, he was the first to comment, "You're lucky, bro." Bro. That word haunted me. One evening, I tried to surprise her with dinner. But when I arrived at her apartment, I saw Denial leaving. She said he'd come to drop off some documents. I nodded. That night I couldn't sleep. My instincts screamed betrayal, but my heart whispered trust. And I always chose my heart. Her wedding mood swings began a month before the big day. She said she didn't like the dress she'd picked. Then the menu. Then the venue. Each time, I reassured her, compromised, and adapted. I thought she was just nervous. One night, 10 days before the wedding, she texted me. "Can we talk?" I remember feeling cold even before I opened the message. She said she needed time. That she wasn't sure. that everything was moving too fast. But there was one thing she didn't say. Why? I begged her to explain. She refused. Said she'd feel better soon. I waited, thinking she was overwhelmed. But something in her eyes during our last meeting made me feel like she was already gone. Then her sister told me the truth. She didn't need space. She needed a night to celebrate his birthday. A dinner reservation, wine, candles, and a rooftop view. On the exact date I was supposed to take her hand in front of God and family, she was whispering wishes into another man's ear. That betrayal didn't just break me, it rewrote everything I believed about love. But here's the thing about pain. It either destroys you or rebuilds you. And I wasn't going to let her destroy me. Because deep down, something told me this wasn't the end of her games. And I was right. 3 days after what would have been our wedding, I received a delivery. A glossy white envelope, tied with a silk ribbon. No name. No return address. Inside I found photos. Ariba. Denial. Together. Not just a rooftop dinner, but a full-blown romantic getaway. Lahore, Murray, back to Lahore in 2 nights. The timestamps mocked me. They were dated during what should have been our honeymoon. There she was, in a red shawl I'd given her last Eid, smiling as Denial tucked her hair behind her ear, the same gesture she once said only made her feel safe when I did it. There they were in a hotel room balcony, drinking chai. Her head on his shoulder. His arm around her waist. Her face radiated in a way it hadn't been around me for months. I dropped the photos. My hands were trembling. But it wasn't anger yet. It was disbelief. The kind that hits your stomach like nausea. The kind that whispers, "This can't be happening." I paced the floor, over and over. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called her. She didn't answer. Instead, she texted, "Please don't reach out. I need time." Time? I was done giving her time. The next day, I went to her house. Not to confront her, but to return the engagement ring. I didn't want it. I didn't want anything that held her memory. But when I got there, I didn't even have to knock. Her mother opened the door, eyes red, face pale. "I'm so sorry, Beta," she said. I tried to stop her. We all did. That's when it hit me, they knew. Her entire family knew what she was doing. They knew she'd left me for Denial. And they said nothing. And worse. They were protecting her. "You deserve better," her mother whispered, handing me a small box. Inside was the ring I gave Ariba, tucked away like an unwanted souvenir. But it wasn't until I turned to leave that I noticed something lying on their hallway table. An invitation. Not mine. Not from our wedding. This one was for Denial's birthday party. A custom-printed black card, gold foil letters, RSVP closed. With a line that made my blood run cold. Celebrating the one who matters most. I stared at it for a full minute. The party wasn't even a last-minute plan. It had been organized for weeks. While I was struggling with flower arrangements and paying off the final catering bill, she had been designing candlelit menus and picking out his cake flavor. She didn't choose his birthday over our wedding. She planned it that way. She never intended to marry me. Not after Denial came back into her life. And here's the part that twisted the knife deeper. 3 weeks before the wedding, when I was down with dengue, bedridden and hallucinating with fever, Denial had visited her twice. Once at work. Once at home. She never told me. I found out from her cousin 2 days later, who thought I already knew. They looked really close, she said. Like they were catching up on old times. Turns out, they weren't just best friends. They were exes. The kind that ended things to focus on careers, but kept the door open with emojis and late-night nostalgia texts. She had lied to me every time she said, "He's like a brother." Brothers don't take your fiancé to 5-star hotels. Brothers don't touch her waist like they own it. Brothers don't steal the life you were building. My body went numb that night. I remember staring into the mirror and not recognizing myself. Was I a joke to her? Had I been nothing more than a safe option? A backup plan? A wallet with a heartbeat? I started replaying every moment we'd shared, every "I love you," every tear she cried, every plan we made, and they all began to feel rehearsed. Like she was performing a role until the one she really wanted came back. And denial? He didn't even need to fight for her. She ran to him willingly. But fate has a funny way of working. Because just when she thought I'd crawl back, or wait for her to figure herself out, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to sulk. I wasn't going to watch her walk into the sunset with another man while I rotted in the shadows. No. I was going to move on. And not just move on, I was going to win. Because sometimes the best revenge is showing them they weren't even worth your ruin. A week after returning the engagement ring, I disappeared from everyone's radar. I stopped answering calls. I deleted Instagram. I blocked Ariba's number. And denials, even though he never had the guts to call. But the universe wasn't done dragging skeletons into the light. Because just when I thought I had nothing left to lose, I got a call from my best friend, Hamza. The one person I trusted like a brother. "Bro," he said, his voice low and shaky. "There's something you need to see." He sent me a screenshot. It was from a private group chat, my friends, our mutual circle, people who had stood beside me at the engagement and promised loyalty. In it, Denial had sent a selfie of him and Ariba kissing, with the caption, "Guess who finally got what he wanted, smiling face with sunglasses." But that wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was what followed. Laughter emojis. I always knew she liked him more. Bro really leveled up. And worst of all, from Hamza's younger brother, someone I had practically raised. "Man, Ali's such a simp. Took care of her for years just to gift wrap her for Danny." I stared at the messages for hours. Not because they shocked me, but because they confirmed what I feared most. I was the fool in the story. And it wasn't just Ariba and Denial who laughed behind my back. It was all of them. The ones who called me loyal. The ones who gave toasts at my engagement. The ones who watched me pay for dinners, drive her around, and defend her choices. They knew. Maybe not all the details, but they knew enough. Enough to see the cracks. Enough to doubt her loyalty. Enough to joke about it when I wasn't in the room. And no one told me. No one pulled me aside. No one said, "She's playing you." That night, I felt something twist inside me. Not sadness. Not rage. Clarity. Because sometimes, the people who break you aren't enemies. They're spectators. Worse, they're silent spectators. And I wasn't done being broken. I was done being blind. 2 weeks later, I showed up to Hamza's birthday party. I hadn't RSVP'd. No one expected me. I walked in wearing a black suit. Calm. Smiling. And the silence that fell when I entered was loud enough to shatter glass. Ariba was there. With Denial. Their fingers loosely intertwined like some twisted engagement ring. I walked past them without a glance. Hugged Hamza. Greeted everyone like nothing ever happened. But deep inside, I was setting fire to everything I once cared about. Later that night, Ariba found me on the balcony. Her eyes, wide, searching, filled with something she hadn't expected to feel. Regret. "Ali," she whispered, brushing her hair back the same way Denial used to. "You look good." I took a sip of my drink and smiled politely. "Marriage prep glow up." Her smile twitched. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Oh, you didn't hear?" I said, playing dumb. "I'm getting married next month." Her face dropped. Visibly. Sharply. "To who?" I tilted my head. "You remember Maham?" She blinked. "Your friend's cousin? The doctor?" "Yeah. Turns out some people don't lie when they say they love you." Ariba's jaw clenched. She forced a laugh. "That's quick." I looked at her for the first time. Really looked. Her eyes were glossy, but not with joy. With panic. She had expected me to crumble. To mourn her. To beg for closure. But instead I had upgraded. Visibly. Publicly. And gracefully. She leaned against the railing and said softly, "You really don't feel anything anymore?" That's when I saw it. The tiny flicker of jealousy. Not because she missed me, but because I moved on first. I looked her straight in the eye. "I feel thankful," I said. "For what?" "For dodging a bullet." What she didn't know was that Maham and I weren't just dating. We were engaged. And unlike Ariba, Maham didn't wait for things to fall into place, she built with me. She respected my wounds without pretending to be the cure. She didn't whisper sweet lies. She spoke hard truths. And I knew something else. Ariba had started having fights with denial. I heard it through the grapevine. Their relationship wasn't all rooftop dinners and inside jokes anymore. He didn't trust her phone habits. She hated his controlling tone. Irony has a dark sense of humor. Because once a cheater always fears the same fate. But the final complication? The one that almost shook me? Was this. Ariba called my mother. 3 days before my wedding to Mom. Told her she was concerned about me rushing into marriage. That she was worried I wasn't over her. My mom told her to mind her own heartbreak. That's when Ariba showed up at my Mendi. Uninvited. Wearing yellow, smiling wide, pretending to be part of the celebration. My friends froze. My bride was confused. I walked up to her calmly. "You weren't invited," I said. "I came to wish you well," she replied sweetly. That's when Maham stepped forward. She took Ariba's hand and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Thank you for letting him go. He deserves so much better." Everyone clapped. But Ariba's face crumbled. Because no revenge hurts more than watching someone live the life you never expected them to find without you. Revenge isn't about screaming matches or public humiliation. Real revenge is silent. Elegant. It's when the person who betrayed you realizes, too late, that they were never the main character in your story. That their lies didn't destroy you, they upgraded you. And my plan? It wasn't just about punishing Ariba. It was about shattering the illusion she'd built around herself. After that unexpected appearance at my Mendi, I knew 2 things. She wasn't over me. She still believed she could play both sides. I wanted her to taste what it felt like to be replaced. To watch someone else stand in the place she abandoned. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, socially. And for that, I needed 3 key ingredients. A visible, powerful love story. The exposure of her betrayal on her own turf. A choice she could never take back. Let me explain. I started with the public story. Maham and I posted nothing online about our engagement at first. No soft launches. No couple photos. We let people speculate. But when Ariba showed up at our Mendi, that was the turning point. I had my cousin, who's a pro photographer, take a candid shot of Maham and me laughing under fairy lights. Her hand on my chest. My eyes locked on hers. The caption? "Real doesn't need rehearsal." It went viral. Not because of the picture, but because everyone who once whispered, "Ariba and Ali were perfect," suddenly realized. She was no longer the center of the story. Comments flooded in. Support. Applause. And passive-aggressive silence from the people who once laughed at me behind my back. That was phase 1. Phase 2? Exposing her. But not through confrontation. Through a trap. I had a mutual friend, someone she still trusted, invite her to a private dinner gathering for some old classmates. Nothing suspicious. Just a reunion vibe. She came. Looking polished. Pretty. Performed. And I came too. With Maham. We sat directly across from her. Maham smiled the whole time. Kind. Composed. Halfway through dinner, someone casually brought up relationships. That's when I said, "You know what's crazy? Sometimes we invest years into someone, only to realize they were just renting space in our lives." Laughter. Agreement. Glasses clinked. Ariba smiled, but her fingers twitched. She knew I was talking about her. So I continued. "Took me too long to figure out that loyalty means nothing to someone addicted to attention." Her jaw tightened. But I wasn't done. I looked her dead in the eye and added, "And sometimes the one you protect the most is the one handing your heart to someone else." Dead silence. That's when Maham, sweet, sharp Maham, placed her hand on mine and said, "Well, not everyone gets a second chance at real love." Game. Set. Match. Ariba excused herself minutes later. But I wasn't done. Phase 3 was the kill shot. I kept the photos. The ones that arrived anonymously after the wedding disaster. I still don't know who sent them, but they were gold. I compiled them into a slideshow. Muted. No commentary. Just timeline-proof visuals. Then I gave them to someone who would speak. Her younger sister, who had felt guilty for weeks. She posted them anonymously on a Toxic Relationship Confessions page with the title, "She left her fiancé the week of their wedding, for a man who still flirts with his exes." It exploded. And the best part? I never had to lift a finger. Ariba messaged me 3 days later. "Why are you doing this?" I replied with 3 words. "I'm not. Karma." But my final move wasn't digital. It was personal. 3 nights before my wedding, Ariba called again. This time from an unknown number. I answered. She was crying. "Ali, I know you hate me. But I made a mistake. I didn't know what I wanted. Denial, he's not who I thought he was. He's controlling. Insecure. He checks my phone." I said nothing. "I keep thinking about what we had," she whispered. "How peaceful it was. How you never doubted me. How you loved me purely." I let the silence stretch. Then finally I said, "You were right the first time." She sniffled. "What?" "I did love you purely." Pause. "But now I love someone who loves me back." Click. I didn't wait for her response. On my wedding day, I didn't think about her once. Not as Maham walked toward me in her ivory dress. Not as we signed the Nika papers. Not as I kissed her forehead under a shower of rose petals. But later that night, I got one final message. Ariba had broken up with Denial. He'd cheated on her. With one of the same girls she once warned me not to worry about. Poetic justice? Maybe. But I didn't laugh. Because by then, I didn't care. The real revenge wasn't exposing her. It wasn't public humiliation or viral posts or passive-aggressive comments. It was healing. It was building a life she could no longer interrupt. A peace she wasn't invited to disturb. A love that wasn't hers anymore. And maybe that's the cruelest revenge of all. To be forgotten by the one who once planned forever with you. People think revenge is about making the other person cry. It's not. Real revenge is when they can't stop watching you smile without them. It's when every place they visit reminds them of you. It's when they open Instagram and see you living the life they sabotaged, and it looks better than anything they ever imagined with you. That's where I am now. It's been 6 months since I married Maham. And Ariba? She moved back in with her parents. Word is she quit her job after Denial dumped her. People talk, quietly of course. They say she changed. That she looks lost. That she misses the days when things were simple. But simplicity was never her style. She chased chaos. And ended up in the ruins of the game she played. My revenge wasn't a one-time strike. It was a series of moments where she realized, piece by piece, that she lost something irreplaceable. I saw her again last month at a family gathering. She didn't know I'd be there. She wore muted makeup, a plain black kurta, and sat near the corner of the room. When I walked in with Maham on my arm, she froze. I didn't look at her. Not because I was avoiding her. but because I truly didn't need to anymore. And the part that hurt her most? Maham was glowing. Not just beautiful, but peaceful. Fulfilled. Proud of the man beside her. Everything Ariba once pretended to be. When I passed by her table, she said my name under her breath. Ali. I turned slightly. Not fully. She looked up. Her eyes didn't hold defiance. They held sorrow. But I wasn't interested in collecting her tears. I simply nodded. And walked on. You see, sometimes the best endings aren't dramatic. They're quiet victories. The kind where you no longer need to explain yourself. Because the proof is in your peace. And that peace is louder than any revenge speech ever could be. I don't know what the future holds. But I've learned this. If someone ever asks you to dim your light for their shadow, walk away. Because love built on betrayal will always collapse. And if you're lucky, you'll walk out of the rubble with someone who sees your scars and still chooses to stay. Like Maham did. Like I never knew love could. And as for Ariba? I hope she learns. I hope she heals. But if she doesn't, that's not my story anymore. That's hers.